I co-host this podcast with Tony on Post Punk TV. Tonight, I'm going to be chatting with Rosie, Tom, and Matt from the March Violets. None of us have ever met before, but I've been looking forward to this. So, welcome, the three of you. Nice to meet you.
Yep, nice to meet you as well.
Thanks for having us.
So, first, where are you all?
Well, currently we're all in Manchester, and it's unusual for us all to be in the same place, really, because we're quite spread across the globe.
Yeah,
the globe.
The globe. Yeah, it's been a hot day.
Yeah, it has. It's really sticky. So normally, where are you?
Well, I happen to live in Athens, Georgia, in the United States. I've been there for nearly 25 years now.
Okay.
And so, and Matt and Rosie are both based in Manchester.
Yeah,
just down the road from where you started in Leeds.
Yeah, I've been adopted since I was in Leeds. I've been adopted by Manchester, and I actually feel like I'm a very lucky girl. Much as my heart is in Yorkshire, Manchester's a good place to be.
I live in North Wales, so Manchester's my city getaway at the weekend. Yeah. So how long have you been in Manchester?
Me?
Yeah.
Since 1986.
Oh, so you've seen those incredible changes, right?
Yeah, but Matt's seen more.
Okay.
You've been here.
I've been here my entire life.
Oh, Matt, you're from Manchester, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Technically born in Salford, but brought up in Manchester.
Okay. Right. Okay. Interesting. And Tom, yourself?
Well, Athens, Georgia, in the United States at the moment.
For how long?
But went for 25 years now. So
okay.
Yeah, my wife's from there, and we were in London for 10 years. Moved out there in 2001. Right. So I have a little studio there and work with bands over there.
Okay, interesting. Okay,
and
that's
back and forth.
It's not just a little studio. It's a fantastic studio, and it's like, I know we're going to talk about the music later, but it's where we recorded Crocodile Promises, the new album.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay,
that's right.
Wow. Well, okay, lovely. That's correct. Okay, so I'm gonna the first question. To Rosie, I guess, if you want to go first, then I'll come to Tom and Matt. What were your earliest artistic interests?
What, like way back in the way back?
Yeah. From when you first remember being interested in something creative.
Well, I mean, I started off by being one of those lucky kids that was read to as a kid. And it was a kind of fairy stories, that kind of thing. And it was a very short hop, a skip and a jump to me writing my own stories. I wrote stories for my dolls because they were good listeners. And I've actually still got some of these teeny tiny books that I wrote for them. And that's how I started. I was doing this like when I was tiny. And I wrote poetry and I wrote songs, and all of it with like this freewheeling energy of a child that, before she's told she's not supposed to do things like that and has to be sensible and grow up and wear beige. Not that any of that really worked, to be honest.
Right. Okay. And what about music? What were the first musical influences?
Well, I've got a couple of really powerful memories. Sorry. I'm sure there are lots of people out there who had like these elder cousins who introduced them to mind-altering music. And for me, it was my elder cousin who brought round a copy of Led Zepp 2. And the minute the needle hit the record and the opening chords of Whole Lot of Love came out of the really crappy speaker on my mum and dad's record player, it's like, I understood that music had power, and I'd never heard anything like it in my life before. And then another cousin played In Search of Space, Hawkwind, and that opened up another part of my brain. So those were really they were moments that changed me when I realized that music wasn't just bubblegum, wasn't just the stuff I heard on the radio.
Yeah. Wow, interesting. So Led Zeppelin was the first musical thing you remember? What you think?
I think it's one of the very first things I remember. And obviously, I don't look a day over 14th century, but that was 1969. I was 9 years old.
Wow. Okay.
So it was, it was a defining moment.
Wow. Okay. Well, I thought I was quite cool liking Slade at that age, but I think you've outdone me there, to be honest. So what about Matt and Tom? What were your earliest influences?
My first musical, I want to say crush, but it wasn't a crush. It was just an eye opener on top of the pops. Was Adam and the Ants, just because they were so different from anything that I had previously heard or seen. And I think the combination of that striking image and the music that just sounded like, to me, nothing else that was out there at the time, just made me want to start down a track of discovering more of that stuff.
Right.
I think then I went off on a slight angle over into the new wave of British heavy metal for a few years. And the first band that I saw live was Iron Maiden.
Okay.
And then I came back over to discover bands like the Cramps and the Dead Kennedys and the more alternative side of music, which is kind of where I continue to delve and carry on to this day.
Okay, interesting. And Tom, what about yourself?
Oh, bloody hell. For music, for me, probably about age 3, classical music. I think my parents used to play quite a bit of that, and my dad did. And I can remember for my birthday, I got Carnival des Animaux, which had descriptive musical passages describing animals. It was just me, a toddler, creeping down to check out my presents for my birthday.
Okay.
And putting the record on, and I think it was the Donkeys that came on, the third track in, and it scared the living daylights out of me. And it turns out that was actually the influence for the shower scene in Psycho that Bernard Herrmann used. So yeah, that kind of where I realised how powerful music was.
My one of my I think she was an auntie, like a distant auntie. She was the music teacher at my school, and I really hated the fact that I was related to one of the teachers, and I didn't want any of my mates to know. And I remember her. That was one of our that music was one of our pieces we had to do for. I don't know if it was GCSE or slightly earlier, but. And I remember, because it was her, there's no way I could pay attention. It was so uncool. And I remember her really bollocking me once and shouting at me and saying, just because you're related to me doesn't mean you can ignore this music work. The whole kind of class turned around. And from then on, I was branded as the music teacher's relative. And it kind of scarred me. So if I hear any of that music now, it kind of makes me nervous thinking about being outed in front of all my mates in that way. So what about other influences? Because I know you all do other things creatively as well.
I mean, I was, when I was about 9, 10, I think the Osmonds' Crazy Horses crept in there at some point. Some of the glam stuff as it was coming out. I think David Bowie, T-Rex, the Sweet, of course. A lot of that kind of thing. And then I think for me, when punk rock happened, I was still about 14 in 1977, and Nevermind the Bollocks was the first punk record that I bought. And I think Steve Jones's wall of guitars thing and the simplicity of it, but it was also very orchestral, the way it sounded. It was just so well produced.
Sure.
Big influence. And then, Bauhaus, Joy Division, Susie and the Banshees, all that sort of thing started to, pop out as I was, becoming 17 years old, that sort of thing. So all that, more, interesting kind of music that was interesting as well.
Sure.
Some, funky experiment, a certain ratio, a Gang of Four, all that sort of thing.
And Matt, were you aware of the importance of the Manchester punk bands when you were a young guy? Were you aware of like the Buzzcocks and all the amazing bands around you like that?
I'm not going to say that I was aware of it, but my sister went out with a drummer who was part of the Manchester Musicians Collective.
Right.
I think I was 8 years old, and she took me to one of their band rehearsals.
Wow.
And so, in retrospect, I know that I was around bands, early versions of Joy Division and the Manchester Mekons and all of those guys, but without knowing it. I did have a couple of drum lessons off the drummer. It was really not my thing.
Right. Okay.
But it did open my eyes to something it did open my eyes to something that was going on in Manchester that wasn't just pop music.
Yeah, for sure. And Rosie, can I come back to you for a second? So you're a musician, artist, writer. Does being a musician and artist affect how you see the world?
I wouldn't claim to be a musician. I mean, I write lyrics and I can sing a tune, but I would never claim that I can play an instrument. That's something I cannot do. My instrument is my voice. So I don't want to sort of steal anyone's thunder. Maybe musician in the wider sense of the term.
I think singers are still musicians.
Well, actually, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'm maybe underestimating myself. How do I see it? I mean, I write fiction, I write poetry, I write lyrics, I can create a tune. And I see them all as kind of interconnected. I don't see them as separate. I mean, obviously, they express different things at different times. But right, okay, here's a quote. I like quotes. Walt Whitman, the American poet, said, "Do I contradict myself? I do. I contain multitudes."
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. I like the idea that we aren't just one thing. We're a hodgepodge of multitudinous facets, and I don't see why I should limit myself. To define is to limit. So yeah, I have no problem with liking, getting into things like Portuguese fado singing, or Frank Zappa, or Captain Beefheart, or folk music. I don't see. I've never seen a problem with listening broadly and reading broadly. Does that make any sense? Have I gone completely off piste?
It does. We chatted to. We've had a couple of people on that said the same thing, but I chatted to an actor, Frankie Loyal, who was a friend of Tony's, who'd acted in Sons of Anarchy, and a couple of offshoots for that, and he did several different things, and he thought for a minute, and he said, he was a really humble guy as well. I really enjoyed talking to him, and he said, "I see myself as a storyteller."
Yeah, I would second that emotion, definitely.
And but with that in mind, if you're a storyteller, do you think that being a storyteller affects how you see the world?
Yes. I think I filter a lot of the world through the power of story. I've got this belief that, like, we as humanity began with story, from the first fire that we sat around, explaining the world to ourselves via stories. And I think that's the beginning of art, and it's the beginning of, crafting words. And I see that all in an unbroken line to now.
And can I ask the same thing of Tom and Matt being creators or artists? Does that affect how you see life and how you see the world?
Yeah. For me, I was never a singer. I always knew I never could be or wanted to be, but I always wanted to tell a story somehow. And I guess it was just picking up guitars, hearing everybody else out there who was already doing that, and kind of learning from them, from the ones that I really appreciated and really felt I understood, and just trying to pass that down and sort of I don't know, try to I just kind of think about trying to treat guitar slightly differently, maybe, than a lot of other guitar players, and in that it's very naively approached and played in a lot of ways, but it's very simple. I don't know how well that comes across in what I do, but I hope it does. It's like, you never know, and I think people appreciate that kind of thing. It's just something that sits outside, a little different, or whatever. And I think it does affect how I see the world, because I can see how there's conversations I have with fans or other musicians and what they say. I can see how it's affected them, and that's a great thing. You know, that's what it's all about for me, definitely.
And what about you, Matt?
Not sure that I think the music and the lyrics that I write, I've always written since I was a teenager. I've been perhaps more a reflection of my version of reality. I'm not sure that's the same as everybody else's version, but yeah, I think historically my lyrics before I was in the March Violets have been quite internal based. They're not observations of the outside world. They're more feeling based, and that's how I've traditionally written lyrics, and I try and write music around to accentuate those lyrics.
There's a question which sounds a little bit vague, but I think because we're all a similar kind of age, I feel comfortable asking this when people are similar kind of age to me. I feel like I'm living through a period of history now that I've never experienced anything like this before. Really, I'm used to things being quite settled for most of my life, and suddenly I feel I have that. So, how do you feel about the world at the moment?
Do you want to go first, Tom?
Not too excited. Yeah. There was an excitement back in the 80s. Yeah. Even though things were bad back then, there was a political and organisational, certainly in the West anyway. I think there was a set way how things would work, and within certain parameters. I mean, that is all gone, literally in the last 2-3 years, really. Yeah, I mean, it's very unsettling. I mean, I think that it's going to create a lot of fantastic art as people figure out how to cope with it all. I don't know. What do you think, Rosie? I mean, it's kind of parallels the 80s, what we're going through, but I honestly think that this time around we're further down through into our period. You know,
I'd agree with you with that one. It's like, the 80s were difficult times, and I know the Violets have said it before that like we created music as twisted as the times, and we continue to do that. And I think that's one reason why so many younger folk, folk in their 20s, are coming to Violets gigs and really getting into us. Because the music still resonates. I do think things are different now. I think they're better in some ways and far scarier in other ways. And the idea that every gig we do, we have folk in their 20s coming up to us saying, "Thank you for doing what you do. You set an example. You've really helped me realize that I cannot, I've got permission to write my own songs and articulate my own stuff. You've been an inspiration." That's amazing, because I think if there's hope coming from anywhere, it's not old fuckers like us. It's
some of them.
It's like we're keeping the faith. We're getting out there and saying stuff. I mean, I am dismayed by some people of my generation who I seem to have forgotten what it was like to care and the reactionary nature of what's going on. And so I look to younger generations to find hope, because wow, it's absolutely incredible. It's the fire and the passion and the do not tell me who and what I am. It's really inspiring, and that kind of does give me hope to carry on, because heaven knows we need to find sources of hope. I think it was the artist David Hoyle who says, to be happy is a radical act, and it's never truer than now, really.
So when you said some of it is far, far better than in the past, and some of it is far, far scarier, what were you thinking of?
In the 80s, it's like, I mean, speaking as somebody who's like LGBT, it's like you could have a woman could have her kids taken away from her if she was outed as a lesbian. People could lose their jobs. I mean, I worked as a teacher in a school for a while, and I could not be out as a teacher because under Section 28, they would have found a way of vacating my post. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like in some ways there have been improvements, but that does not mean it's like everything in the garden is roses. People who say the battles have all been won clearly have never had any battles to fight.
No, that's right.
You know, and the level of you know, young people now just rejecting gender as a construct completely is very different to when I was around in the 80s. And it's like, you know, that whole thing about standing on the shoulders of giants. The work we did then reaps benefits for folk now. But yes, Tom's absolutely right. There is some very, very scary political stuff going on at the macro level, and you know, let's not deny that.
And what would you give me as an example of that?
Right now,
seriously,
in the United States, people with brown skin are being picked up by badgeless, masked, armed men and disappeared off the street.
I mean, you know, so we used to hear about that happening in Pinochet, under Pinochet. You know,
Pinochet, or you know, you'd expect to hear things like that going on, you know, in parts of the Russian Federation, places like that. But in the US, it's becoming normalised.
Yeah, I was actually interested. That I think that's probably the word, normalized, because I think so much of I veer between being completely bewildered or absolutely shocked on a weekly basis, but I've also been surprised by how quickly it's become normal in my head. So it takes quite a lot to even grab my attention nowadays, because I feel so exhausted by so many things going wrong as far as I can see it. And it's not one of those things about everything was better in the old days. Like Rosie was saying, things clearly weren't. So many things are better now. But also, I think on some level, every day I can see 4 or 5 headlines which just scare the life out of me. But I've also just become commonplace now, and I find that I just find, and when I asked you how if being an artist, how you see the world, I just wonder, is the extremity of what we're seeing across the world now, is that affecting your art?
Well, there's a new song called
roar their houses down. You know, we're not content with blowing their houses down. Let's roar those houses down.
And do you think we can do
a mantra, isn't it? I mean, technically, it's a mantra. It just repeats. Through 4 stanzas, and it's a you know, a call to gathering to resist it. You know, it's not released yet. We haven't finished totally mixing it yet, but it's a start for for the next batch of material that we'll be putting out next year sometime, I guess.
And do you think there's a possibility that we can roar the houses down?
Why should it stop us trying?
You know, it can't do any harm.
No.
I mean, you have to go back and look and see what happened in Germany in the 30s, and see the kind of resistance that was going on as Mr. H was rising up through society. What people were trying to do to stop him, and sadly there's a lot of parallels with what happened back then, and a lot of people who did try to resist, even in a not just unviolent manner, did end up getting guillotined or just put to camps. So there's a lot of there's a lot to be concerned about, and I mean I don't want to be there's no point being a complete downer about it, but I think people have to be aware that this isn't since the end of the Second World War we've not been in a situation like this in the West. I mean, other countries all around the world have had terrible
and it's like sometimes
inflicted on them. It's just coming our way.
And people say, like, well, isn't it like, a tremendous affectation to be making music in a band? Isn't it, some kind of, dabbling? And how can you think that poetry and songs are important at a time like this? And I'm always reminded of, like, the words of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who said, if our voices were unimportant, they wouldn't keep trying to silence us.
Yeah, I think that's right. I chatted. I won't say who it is, but somebody I played with. And I remember he saying to me that he was very careful because of where he grew up. He was very careful with words because he said words turn to bullets like that. He said, I've seen it happen. But I suppose, the opposite is also true, isn't it? That those words can turn into something like they can turn into a peace movement like that as well.
Yeah.
I think when people say, oh, it's an affectation, I think that's a real insult. I personally think that artists have a massive role to play nowadays. You've
only got to look at Glastonbury this year, really.
What did you think about? What did you think about that?
I didn't see it. I saw the news coverage. We were too busy gigging in London.
We were playing. I mean, I don't disagree with what's being said. I think you've got to be very careful. Don't blow your wad in the wrong way. I think, I hear that, well, Villain's not going to be touring the US. His visa's been revoked, so he's lost the opportunity to go there and do it more clever, I think that was a mistake,
And Rosie, Matt, what do you think?
I think you should go for it, Matt. I've said a lot.
I think there are ways of saying things and getting your message across. I think Amel and the Sniffers, they managed to get their message across at Glastonbury without causing the hoo-ha that Bob Vylan did. But I understand Bob Vylan in the heat of the moment, not necessarily choosing his words too carefully. I just think it was an unfortunate chant. He could have got his message across without a death threat.
Yeah. Rosie?
Yeah, what they said.
Because we need him out there touring in the US. I lived there, that kind of that attitude and sympathies and whatnot needs to be out there and getting a profile and touring and preaching a good message. That now won't happen.
Okay. All three of you, you've been artists for a long time. What would you say now is most important in your life?
Putting one word in front of the other.
Right, okay.
About a week ago, it was sleep for me.
Right.
I
And Matt?
don't know. Lots of things.
Mine is just to be able to continue making music.
I asked this because I did some research. I interviewed some people anonymously, and it was creative, pretty well-known creative people. And from the 5 people I interviewed, the main thing that came up was family or creativity. And they'd all gone past the fame, the kind of recognition, all of that. They'd said was no longer important to them, but they said that creativity and family was central to their lives. And I was quite surprised. They were from quite diverse backgrounds and they worked in diverse areas. But I was surprised that they all said that same thing. Is that something you'd agree with, or do you have other things that matter as much or more?
So I've spent most of my life having a normal job in an office. And it's only in the last 4 or 5 years that I've had the opportunity to not have creativity as a hobby. It's been what I do. And that's been a great thing for me. Obviously, the job that I had for 30 years has allowed me now to do that, but I don't want to give that up and have to go back to having a normal office job or anything like that. I will make ends meet being creative, hopefully for the rest of my life.
Rosie?
Yeah, similar to Matt. You know, it's like I'm from a working class background, and I never expected to be able to just work as an artist, and so I've worked all my life. And but for the past sort of 10, 12 years, I've managed to make enough money from books and you know, creativity, teaching, mentoring, that kind of thing, to not have to work 9 to 5 like Matt. And I couldn't agree more. It's that I'm doing what I really have. I never even dreamt I'd be able to do this. And now that I've got it, I don't plan on wasting a minute.
Okay. I'm going to see if Tony's around for some more kind of specific music stuff. Tony, have we got you there? Tony?
I can see him. Oh, he's popping in and out.
You can see him, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
Tony, are you there? Earth to Tony, are you there?
Sorry, we had some technical problems here. You guys are currently on tour, and I'm very excited to see you guys on tour. I see all the posts on your Instagram and social media. How is the tour going, and what other plans do you have for this year as far as touring or putting out new music?
Yeah, Tom was talking about that earlier, weren't you, Tom?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have 8 more shows in the UK, I think, up until the middle of July, which we're really looking forward to doing. There's some places we haven't played for a very long time. We're kind of working on some new material. We've got one track we were talking about earlier that's pretty much done, and it just needs to be kind of mixed and get a final mix on it. And I think you know, there's possibility we might be going out to the States in September, but we're not 100% sure on that. If that doesn't happen, we'll be over in the States next year and back here a lot. We'll be booking shows, you know, between 6 and 8 months in advance to make sure that we've got our year properly planned, and looking at putting out a new record next year, follow up to Crocodile Promises. I guess anything else? I mean, we'd love to go play South America if anyone's listening. The Violets have never played South America ever, and obviously we want to get back out. So we haven't done any shows in the EU since 23. Is it 23? We did that, or
23? Yeah. Oh no, we did.
It was 24, wasn't it?
24. Yeah. Beginning of 24, we played Dark Malta, Dark Madrid, and Portugal. Yeah. So it was mostly flat around there. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a lot of gigs that we want to do next year.
Yeah.
You guys are playing your classics. I know we posted some music together, and it was very exciting for me because I've always been a fan. As a matter of fact, Richard, do you remember our conversation when we started this maybe a year and a half ago? That I told you that it wasn't like who would you like to have on the show, and I mentioned the March Violets. Remember?
Yeah.
And it's not about having a huge social media following. We've had all type of actors and musicians here on the show, but I've always liked you guys, and I think you guys deserve a much bigger place in social media, and also, you know, as far as recognition, right? I want to help you and Richard. So we'll put this out this week for sure. I think this episode goes out on Friday, and all the links to the March Violets are going to be posted here on Post Punk TV and on Room 37 podcast. So keep up with them, with the band, the whole band, on their website as well. It's going to be there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That'd be brilliant.
So, really,
It's been an honor and a pleasure. Like I said, I'm a huge fan, and and I know that a lot of people are going to be happy to see you guys on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, that really means a lot. That means a massive amount.
It really does.
It really does.
I don't get
not
quite
just
as much help as we like sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when they hear your classics, do you still enjoy them playing them
Oh
as you
God,
did
yeah,
when they
we
first
love
came
it.
out?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we've
I mean, they're like old friends.
Yeah, and because we've got such an extensive back catalogue, we always seem to be finding new tracks that we haven't played for a long time. Like we've just sort of put Long Pig and Steam back into the set over the past couple of gigs, and we're just seriously, absolutely loving playing them and just rediscovering the energy that we wrote them with, and
starting the set with Long Pig was a great idea. And funnily enough, I think the first time we ever played that song, I'm pretty sure it was Leeds Warehouse. The second time we played Leeds Warehouse.
Really?
Three, something like that. So
Really?
yeah, that's interesting that's gone back in there.
Yeah.
It's a great opener.
So yeah, we have
I mean, let's play the new ones.
Yeah, we get excited by the new stuff, obviously, but it's lovely to still be excited by the old stuff too.
And they're so easy to play. That's the other nice thing.
Speak yourself.
That was when I was just like one line.
That matters. Yeah. I totally get that. That matters.
with a live drummer, and I've seen now that you guys are going back to your roots of having a drum machine. How does that feel playing it live? Is it make it also easier to travel? Because I'm a big fan of drum machine. I don't know about Richard, but I think the less equipment. I'm sorry for all the drummers that we have interviewed, but I think the less equipment to carry around, it's better.
I mean, it's like my memory is that we've always been a drum machine band. I know that there was Travis, the live drummer, but that was very much towards the end of the 80s. Violets. For me, Violets.
We had quite a few
drum machine band. But yeah, I love it. It's my kind of thing.
It makes you play a certain way because, we haven't programmed any, human feel into any of these beats. Certainly not back when we got started, because it wasn't a thing you could do anyway. And it makes it sound a certain way. And I think that the whole point of it when we got started was that all the music that had electronic drums back then in the early 80s was kind of poppy, nicey stuff you'd see, with synths and new romantic kind of stuff. I mean, there was bands like Metal Urbain in France, and there was there was kind of industrial stuff that was getting started then, but with bands with guitars that sounded punky and lively with a drum machine. There was the Sisters, us, Three Johns. Who else was there at the time?
Lorries.
Suicide kind of started that off, I guess. You think about it, but I mean, they were much more experimental than we were. But we tried to make pop songs with guitars and drum machine, basically, but it just didn't quite turn out like that.
Sure, thank you for your time. Like I said, this is gonna go out on Friday. This Friday coming up, and thank you. It's an honor for me and Richard. Sure.
Well, thank you for the support. Thanks for the support, you folks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, seriously, man. It really, really helped.
I think Richard has a couple more questions, and again, thank you very much, and I apologize for the small delay.
That's okay.
No worries, man. Lovely to chat.
So yes, I do. Yeah, echo what Tony said. It's been lovely having you on. So I've got these two questions that I forewarned you about at the beginning. So I'll start with Matt's looking like he's starting to relax. So we'll end that. So what has been your biggest mistake? What do you think your biggest mistake in life, Matt, and your best decision? What would you say they were?
I mean, if just on a whim, I would say that my biggest mistake was assuming that I was going to be a rock star when I was 14 years old without doing anything. Because it obviously didn't happen. I was playing in bands in Manchester, in local pubs, expecting to be discovered, and it just happened. And obviously it didn't. And what was the second question?
And your best decision in life?
My best decision in life, can I have two?
Yeah.
So the first one was offering to take redundancy 6 years ago at my office job. And the second one was asking Rosie if I could audition for the vocals and bass in the March Violets.
And you sent us that track?
Because up until that point, I'd always said, if you ever need a bassist, I can do that, but I can't do the vocals. And obviously I can. I just didn't know it.
Okay.
You can.
I love that. And the same question to Tom.
I think my biggest mistake might have been at the, while the, in the first iteration of the band was, and it was very, trying to describe it, it's quite a fiery band to be part of. That's been nice. But I mean, I think that's also what made it unique, and that's how it ended up sounding like it sounded and all the rest of it. But I think being so young, I was like 18 when the band got started, didn't really know and understand how to capitalise it and make more of it at the time. And I think, we were having this conversation earlier today a little bit about that, and I was just like, I wish there's people I've met and other creative people I probably could have had more interaction with and worked with or whatever, and just didn't. This is towards the tail end of the band, sort of like 80s, 5, 8, 6, 87. And then probably the best decision I ever took was to move to Leeds to become part of the band. When I was 17. So I went to art college to do a foundation course, but I was vaguely interested in that. But the main reason was to come down and join up with Rosie and Lawrence Space Pair at the time, and Simon Denby, who's the original male singer.
Okay.
So it's pretty simple.
Okay. And Rosie, the same questions?
I think in terms of mistake, I've made so many specific mistakes that we'd be here all night, but I think my mistake is a slightly more general one, which is my mistake was not believing in myself. And it affected so much of my life. It's taken me decades to actually have some faith in myself and my abilities. I've doubted myself at every turn.
Do you mind me asking, till when?
I think I've only really started accepting that I can, form a complete sentence and write a decent story in the past decade. It's taken me decades, and it's kind of infested. That like doubt in myself has kind of infested a lot of my world attitude, but I've still kept going anyway, because I've also got that balanced with a very stubborn streak of like, I'm going to keep going anyway. In terms of best decision, and this is the truth, I was at like Tom, I couldn't wait to get away from home and go to Leeds, and I was at Leeds and I was studying at university, and I'm a geek, I loved studying. I loved the course I was on. It was studying medieval English, and I was doing so well that they actually offered me, I did a master's, and they offered me a fully funded place to do a doctorate. I would have been Dr. Garland, doing a PhD in medieval literature. And this was when the Violets were just starting. And I had a choice to either follow this academic path and go into academia and, write books and all the rest of it, or carry on with the March Violets. And I made the decision to carry on with the Violets. And that was still a decision I remember to this day as being a very, very good decision. Wasn't an easy decision, but it was the best one. Yeah.
Great answers. Those are the, I'm not just saying this, those are the best sets of answers from the three of you that I've had. And I think my lesson is warn people of the questions beforehand so they have time to think and don't say something, because all of your answers there I really, really enjoyed. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this. I was knackered tonight and didn't have time to do this, and I was tired. I was like, oh, why am I doing this? And I've really, really enjoyed the 45 minutes. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Well, it's mutual. It's mutual. I'm melting here, but it's been really great.
Yes, me too. I'll just hand back to Tony to do the official goodbyes and stuff. But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Tony?
Thank you. Thanks a lot, mate.
Cheers, Richard.
Pleasure. And like I said earlier, all your links are going to be below, your merch, your touring, and from our perspective, we want to keep promoting and your songs, and even, you know, I'm very interested in your new music as well, and the video that you guys made last year. You were involved in the directing that video, correct, or production yeah. Yeah, it was very interesting. It was very.
Thank you.
I liked all the visuals and bring the black and white. I don't know if you can tell, but I like posting a lot of black and white myself. So.
Yeah, I saw that. I looked at. Yeah.
It so it's really very interesting, and it's been a pleasure. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
I hope to see you on tour and meet you in person, and so Richard does as well.
We'll stay in touch and let you know what we're up to.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.